Hey guys, you got to plug in, right? One of the first things I did learn, though, in my time at IBM was that there are many things that you come to value, and there are many things that you try to build on. And clearly in the technology business, we think about that as products and technology. But in reality, success in our industry, in our business, is all about the human capital. It's about the people that have the wonderful ideas and shape the products and technologies that, in fact, shape and reshape lives and businesses across our country. Without a strong human capital base, no company in any industry can, in fact, survive. And so it's important that all of us think about what we can do to help build a stronger human capital base, not just here in Silicon Valley, but across this country where we have fallen not just in 45th place in California, we've fallen off the charts internationally, quite frankly, for our performance in our school systems. And while Silicon Valley's Education Foundation is doing wonderful work in a very targeted initiative in STEM or math and science, I think there's much more that can be done, but I do applaud all the work that they have put forth for this very important initiative here. Diversity in our school systems, diversity in our curriculums is a very, very important thing about how we compete and how we position ourselves to compete in the world at large. But diversity is more than about education. It's about thought and it's about initiative. It's about making sure that we have people that understand the value of being different and take and embrace that value and turn it into something that's truly meaningful. In our school systems, we have to make sure that English is a part of the curriculum, but also math, science, and engineering. I'm struck. I serve today on a commission investigating the financial crisis of this country. And it's not lost on me that if more people had spent time focused on mechanical engineering and electrical engineering rather than financial engineering, our country might be in a much better position today. Our schools here in Silicon Valley represent the diversity that I'm speaking of. They represent all walks of life with people who bring cultural richness to the discussions in the classroom. And we need to make sure that we not only embrace that, but support that fully. Because there's a fundamental issue that we have to deal with, and that's the one that Mohammed spoke to, and that's the achievement gap. It is appalling to think how low the graduation rates are in our school system. And if people can't get out of high school, how can they ever have a productive, effective life and contribution to society in general? I think we need to make sure that a number of things change along the way to solve that fundamental problem of the achievement gap and the graduation rates in our school system. It's a complex problem, but it's one that I am convinced that we can solve if we put our minds to it. And it won't be solved without some controversy. So let me touch the third rail, if I might. I looked at California as an outsider for many, many years and thought, what a spectacular place. Not only do the primary and secondary school systems produce incredible students, but so do the colleges and universities. But in 1978, this state decided it needed to fix another problem. And that fix was called Prop 13. And for those of you who are politicians in the room, you can throw your tomatoes at me now, but the reality is Prop 13 set this state on a course that needs to be changed. When we enacted Prop 13, the state had 13 million people. Today, that population, more than 32 years later, is more than double. So the premise on which it was based, while well-intended and well-founded, I'm not sure it is adequately reflective of the environment in which we operate today. And I would argue, because I'm not a politician, I'm just a guy who wants to be controversial, that we need to do something about that if we're going to deal with the core issue, one of the fundamental issues here, and that is the funding of our school systems for what needs to be done in our classrooms. While I've argued and labored over the issue of propositions in California and whether direct democracy really does work, I would argue for everyone in this room, this is our chance to do something through our direct democracy engine, and that is tell people that we think something needs to change. No one wakes up every morning and says, I want to pay more taxes, but we know full well that if we aren't prepared to change something, the end result is not something any of us is very well going to like. Imagine this. Do you think it's right for our state to spend more money on prisons than they do on schools? Well, if we don't do something about that, think about the consequences of what we're doing with the precious resources that we have to apply to one of life's most important problems or challenges. Now, money is meaningless without reform. And so you must have the other side of the ledger if you're going to fund this properly. And that other side is, in fact, reform. And reform, in my mind, is about creating measurable, definable goals for every participant in the process. For the students, for the teachers, for the school districts, for the administrators, everybody must have a set of goals that can be well established and then well rewarded when they achieve, but most importantly, in this system, punished when they don't contribute. We cannot afford to reward mediocrity. If we do that, we come up with a one-size-fits-all system, and the one-size-fits-all system only perpetuates a sense of mediocrity. While many schools in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley itself has very diverse school districts, it could in fact represent a little petri dish for us to learn about new techniques and new approaches to education. And while every district in and of itself proposes an interesting challenge for us because there are so many, I would argue that diversity does represent an opportunity if we choose to use it in the right way. And so I think we ought to take what we have here in Silicon Valley, challenge our leaders in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C., to make sure that we not only beg and ask for more money, but beg and plead for the reforms that are necessary that represent the measurable outcomes that we all want to see in our classrooms and in our schools. It's been said that to those that much has been given, much is expected. And quite frankly, for me, I never would have thought that I could have had such a fabulous family and so many wonderful friends, or such a spectacular career. And so that expectation was not something that was a part of my thoughts. But one expectation that I do have is that Sandy and I will continue our quest to help those who are hungry, to help those who are not well clothed, to help those who really need a good education. And guess what? You can't learn if you're hungry sitting in the classroom. And to make sure that our work in the community reflects the values and the beliefs that we have, and that is that every child in this country deserves a right to a good education, and every child in this country ought to have a chance in life just like the one I had. Thank you very much.
Mr. John Thompson, everyone. Another round of applause, please, for Mr. John Thompson. That was absolutely fabulous.